Can you explain what opportunity cost is and how it's impacted if you buy a house?
Sure. If you have, let's just make the numbers very simple. You want to buy a $100,000 home, and let's say the banks require a 20% down payment, $20,000. You could do a few things. Number one, you can take that $20,000 and go out and buy this house. And now that's how that money has been used. But if you use that money to buy the house, you lose the opportunity to take that $20,000 and say, use it to buy a rental property. You lose the opportunity to use that $20,000 to invest in the stock market. You lose the opportunity to take that $20,000 and maybe build a business. Now the question is, what is going to give you the best and most growth? Now, hopefully this house that you buy will go up in value. It's not guaranteed. We know that houses don't always go up in value, no matter what your banker says, no matter what your real estate agent says, because we saw what happened after the 2008 crash, where real estate prices were slashed in half. It was as much as 93% real estate values dropping in the state of Michigan, where I am. So we know real estate prices don't always go up. Stock prices don't always go up. Businesses don't always work. Everything has a risk. But now the question is, which risk do you want to take? And which risk do you want to take first? Are you in a situation now where you're ready to go out and buy a house? Or do you want to build your wealth first a little bit more? And that's the question that I want people to start thinking is, am I ready to buy a house? And then people say, well, if I go out and invest my money, the problem is housing prices keep going up. I'm chasing this housing market. It keeps getting more and more and more expensive. And you're 100% right. It's a risk. But there's also a risk the housing prices could fall.
I think one of the biases that makes people want to buy a house is that they're currently renting and they see that as just giving money away. So they think, listen, I could spend this money on a mortgage and I'll own this thing one day, or I could spend this same $2,000, whatever it is, on rent, and I'm never going to own this thing.
Well, I'm here in Los Angeles right now. I had to stay in a hotel. That hotel payment is paying somebody's mortgage. It's paying somebody's college tuition. It's paying for somebody's stuff. When I go to a restaurant and I eat out, I'm paying for somebody's mortgage. I'm paying for somebody's college tuition. I'm paying for somebody's bills. Because when you go out and you rent, that's what everybody says. I am making my landlord rich. Well, when you eat at a restaurant, you're making that restaurant owner rich. When you go to a hotel, you're making the hotel owner rich. When I go and buy a mug, I'm making the mug owner rich. And the reality is, yeah, it's good for you to own a house. But are you ready to own a house? Can you afford to own a house? And what do you want to own first? I rent where I live right now. I am making my landlord rich today. I also rent where my office is. I am making my office landlord very rich because my office rent is very expensive. Do you feel bad for me? I hope not. And this is where we have to get over these money myths that many people keep selling you, that you can't build wealth if you rent where you live. You can't build wealth if you don't get a good degree. That's not the way that the system works. See, there's the traditional rules, and then there's the real financial education money rules. And again, I'm not saying it's bad to own a house, but it's bad to own a house you can't afford.
How do you know if you can afford one?
Well, there's three parts to affording a house. You have to afford the down payment, you have to afford the monthly payment, and you have to afford the move-in costs. I'm going to go start from the simplest one, which is the move-in costs, because many people don't factor this in. When you buy a house, you got to move in. And I'm not talking about the closing costs. You might have to hire movers, which are expensive. You might have to upgrade your furniture, which is expensive. You might have to upgrade the house, which is expensive. Factor that in. Then I want to talk about your down payment. People don't like when I say this, but I don't say what I say to make friends. I say what I say to help people be better with money. If you want to afford the house, you have to have at least a 20% down payment. That way you actually have some equity, some skin in the game. That way you can actually afford the house. The third part is you have to afford the monthly payments. Now, every bank is going to have a different rule for you. Banks have like the 28% rule and these other rules.
Sorry, just on that last point, why do people not like it when you say that?
Because it's very hard to pay a 20% down payment. Housing is expensive. You want to buy a $500,000 house? You have to have $100,000 as a minimum for your down payment.
Okay.
And that's extra cash.
Got you.
Now, if we talk about the monthly costs, the simple way that I like to follow it is you have to have a system for yourself. You have to know how much money you are allowed to spend, how much money you need to be investing, and how much money you have to be saving every single month. Then just factor it in. So the way I like to look at it, a simple rule of thumb is something like a 75-15-10 plan, which says for every dollar that you earn from here on out, 75 cents is the maximum that you can spend. 15 cents is the minimum that you invest. 10 cents is the minimum that you save. Now, let's do the math. If you know that you make, let's call it $100,000 a year, that means the max you can spend out of the $100,000 is $75,000. So if out of that $75,000, you can afford your mortgage costs, you can afford your food, you can afford your vacations and lifestyle, then sure, you can afford it. But if you can't afford that, then you can't afford that mortgage. And the reason why I like to go by this rule is because some people are going to say, I can live in a small house, I just want an expensive car and some nice vacations. Other people are going to say, I want a beautiful home. I don't care about the car and vacations. So now you can factor it all in there. How much can you afford out of that 75% of what you make?
Do you think people even know how much money they spend?
No.
I was thinking, I wonder how many people listening right now know over the last 6 months the exact figure that they spend every single month.
Most people, statistically, are living paycheck to paycheck.
So they're basically spending everything?
Or more.
Okay.
78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, which means I make some money and I spend all of it or more. There's a joke that I like to make, which is in the traditional Indian culture, people make $1 to spend 20 cents. In the traditional American culture, people make $1 to spend $2 through the help of lines of credit, credit cards, and other forms of debt. And the reason why, I'm going to take it a step back. I don't think you wanted me to go this way, but I'm going to go anywhere. Anyway, we live in what's called a credit-based economy, which means if you make $50,000 a year, you don't live off of $50,000 a year. At least most Americans don't. We live in what's called a credit-based economy, which means you have the ability to spend the $50,000 you earned plus debt. Because as you make more money, as you have a good job, you become more creditworthy. And so as you show the bank, hey, I made $50,000, they'll give you credit cards, they'll give you lines of credit, they'll give you whatever types of debt that they can. That way now you can go out and spend $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, because that's what grows the economy. The more money you spend, the richer somebody else gets. If you're enjoying this video and want to take your investing to the next level, I want to remind you that I put together a free investing masterclass where I walk you through how you can get started as an investor and find hidden investment opportunities before everybody else. It's a completely free masterclass, and when you register, you'll also get access to market briefs, which is my newsletter for investors, completely free, complimentary as a bonus. So if you want to get the investing masterclass and market briefs all for free, all you have to do is click the link down in the description below to get it. And so now when you live in this credit-based economy with no financial education, people spend, the economy grows, and most people have no idea what hit them.
Do you know what's really interesting is 2 days ago, I was having a conversation with one of my friends. It was actually, I did a podcast about finance recently, and in there I mentioned some of my friends, and then they messaged me on WhatsApp and we were having a chat in our group chat. And I, for the first time ever, one of them asked me to guess. We're very close friends. We talk about money. We talk about how much money we have, etc. They said, guess who has the most money in the group. So I went through and I did, I think this is this person's net worth of my 5 best friends. And I think this is how much cash they have. Now, one of my friends who is very, what's the word? I guess frugal. Lives a very, very simple life. As I was going through, I go, do you know what? This friend is this like high-flying guy, lives in this amazing apartment. This person has all these wonderful things. This person's been successful in business. This person's successful in crypto. But you know what? I bet my mate, and I won't say his name, I bet he's richer than everyone else in that chat. All of my other friends in the chat. And so I did my little prediction and I said, I bet you've got X figure. And he replied and said, this is my current cash position. He was richer than everyone in the chat in terms of cash combined. This guy lives so free. He lives in like a studio apartment. He never balls. He doesn't have like a fancy car, doesn't have fancy clothes. And he's richer than the entire lot of my friendship group. And I thought, God, there's something really important here in terms of, and it's so crazy if you know the context of what I'm saying, because I've got a friend in that chat who's built like a big business. I've got a friend, like everyone in that chat runs businesses, is successful, but they're living in different ways. And the one friend who runs the smallest business, who like probably has the least income, is the richest. And over the last couple of days, it's so funny. I was thinking about all the dinners I've bought this fucking guy, and I'm like, I didn't know you were a millionaire. Like, I would have been paying for everything.
But this is really, I mean, if we ignore your friends, it's very easy to look fake rich.
Yeah.
Because everybody will give you a line of credit. If I want a Gucci purse and I can't afford the Gucci, guess what? I can buy now, pay later. I can open up a credit card and buy the Gucci and look like I'm rich. When in reality, I'm just making Gucci rich. In fact, one of the richest people in the world, in 2023, he was the richest person in the world, is Bernard Arnault. He's the founder and CEO of LVM, or he's the founder and CEO of the company that owns Louis Vuitton. And why? Because millions of people pay him to look rich, when in reality, he's the one that's getting rich. And we assume that when you make some more money, you got to start looking the part. And this is that mindset shift that we have to make. And, you know, a lot of people resonate who come from the Indian traditional families. They message me saying, Jaspreet, I became a doctor, or my wife and I are doctors. We make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We make a great income, but we have no savings and no investments, and I don't know what to do. And the reason why is we have a Range Rover and a Benz. We have a nice house. We go on the doctor vacations. We have to look the part. But we don't have any money left over at the end of our paychecks. And it's a very easy thing to get caught up in, because when you make more money, you become more creditworthy. Banks will give you bigger loans. When you make more money, you want to spend more money. And it's very easy. And you have to understand, how do you control that spending? And that's why if you follow something like 75, 15, 10, one of the simplest things you can do to start is just always, no matter what, whether you're making $10,000 a year or $10 million a year, you always put money aside to invest. You always put money aside to save, and you spend whatever's left.
My friend doesn't invest. The friend I'm talking about doesn't actually invest. He just doesn't spend. He just doesn't spend money. And he's just stacked up like $1 million in cash whilst earning less than everyone else of my 5 friends in that chat. And it didn't take a long time. Like, it took him 4 years or something, 4 or 5 years of just running this small business with a couple of people. When I say a small business, I mean a small business, like a business of maybe 4 or 5 employees. And he's built up $1 million in cash for himself because he just doesn't spend money. And he doesn't have like an ego, doesn't care what people think of him. Yet my other friends who are earning maybe 5 times more a month have 5 times less cash than him. It's like, it was so inspiring. It was honestly so inspiring, because it says something about the importance of saving, but who the hell wants to save? If I titled this podcast today, something about saving, no one's going to click.
It's not fun. Saving isn't exciting. Who wants to go out and save $2,000? Who wants to spend less money? We want to buy more nice things. But unless you can control the spending, unless you know how to save, you will never build wealth.
Do you know, for people that are in that paycheck to paycheck cycle, which I was in for many, many years of my life, where I'd get paid from my call center, I'd go and spend the money, and I'd pretty much spend all the money within the first couple of days of getting the paycheck, and I was just waiting the next 3 weeks for the next paycheck. What advice would you give them about getting out of that cycle? Because you almost feel imprisoned by that cycle if you're
Absolutely.
in it.
Well, before I give the advice, I want to explain to that person what's happening, because you are the prime customer for our economic system. Banks love you because they can sell you payday loans, they can sell you credit cards, they can sell you lines of credit, and they can keep you in debt for the rest of your life, which means you keep making the bank rich. Corporations love you because you're not going to think twice when we show you this nice bag, when we show you this nice vacation. You're going to want the stuff, and so we love selling you the stuff. The government loves you because you're going to pay the highest taxes. Employees pay the highest taxes. And so when you're in that situation, you are making everybody else rich at your expense. And so if you want to break out of this, the first thing you got to understand, you need to make yourself rich before you make everybody else rich. Because when you're spending all your money, you are putting your money into their pockets. And you have to stop that. You got to keep that money for yourself. You're in a boat. Think of it this way. You're in a boat. And this boat has water just flowing in and you are sinking. And you got to start by sealing the holes. You got to stop the water leaving this. You got to stop the water coming in. You got to stop the bleeding. And that means you got to stop the spending. So if you are in what I call the financial danger zone, which is you don't have $2,000 saved up for an emergency and you have credit card debt. If you are in that situation, you are in the financial danger zone and you have to make drastic changes. That means right now, no more eating at restaurants, no more vacations, no more doing anything that doesn't put money in your pocket, and no more Netflix.
No.
And the reason why I say this isn't because you're going to save $15 a month. It's so you can save 2 hours of your time a day. The average American is watching more than 2 hours of television a day. And if you don't have $2,000 saved up, if you have credit card debt, you cannot afford those 2 hours a day being wasted on TV. And that means right now, you have to go out and start using the time to learn, start using the time to work, and start using the time to make some extra dollars. So what do? Start selling stuff. Stop spending money.
Selling stuff you own.
Selling stuff you own. So if you have a TV that you're not using, sell it. You have a car that you can't afford, sell it. If you're living in a house that you can't afford, sell it. Downgrade. Move smaller. And then work to earn more money.
I've got to say, the couple of things that I came to mind as you were saying that, and funnily enough, I put myself in the shoes of 18-year-old Stephen Bartlett when I was in that small apartment with 3 or 4 immigrants in Moss Side, Rusholme, and I was, my rent was nothing. My rent was £150 a month, which I could not afford and I could not pay. And I was intermittently working between call center jobs, and whatever money I got, I spent. And part of the reason I spent it, Jaspreet, is because, like many people watching, especially men who sometimes feel the need because of the way society is, I was trying to get laid at the same time. And it's hard when you're a young man. And I say young men in particular because the stats do support the fact that there is an expectation that men pay. When you're a young man, it's particularly difficult to do all of these things, to cut back and also get laid. And what am I going to do? Defer getting laid for 10 years? When I say laid, I'm really saying meeting someone and falling in love and having a life. So what do if I'm living in a shoebox, which I was, I can't bring anyone back there. I can't take anyone for dinner. I can't take anyone to the movies. So what do?
And this is why every Indian parents tell their kids to become a doctor so their son can get married. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept. But here's the thing. You have to pick your hard. Either life's going to be hard now or it's going to be hard for the rest of your life. And you have to pick what's more important to you right now. And, if we talk about balance, if you want to have a balance of everything where you want to find a girl and you want to make money and you want to stay healthy, you are dividing your attention everywhere. I'm not saying it's impossible, but very few people can actually do everything all at once. And if your number one goal is to become wealthy, if your number one goal is to turn your finances around, you have to get serious about it. Because where you put your attention is where you get the results. And so if you want to be in a better financial situation, you are going to have to make sacrifices. And it's difficult. I can't come here and tell you it's going to be easy. Because that's going to be me lying to you.
I got to be honest, I did make a sacrifice. And for me, the sacrifice was I started a business. And frankly, that meant that I didn't have time to be going out, getting laid or meeting people or socializing. But my story arc ends with it going well. And then the romantic situation taking care of itself many years later, once it had gone well, because I was so focused on myself. And it's funny, there is a bit of a paradox to life that the more you actually focus inward, the more you become a magnet.
Yeah.
And the more I focused outward, the more I pursued and chased and sort of neglected myself, the more harder it was to get people interested in me.
Yeah. And, I also want to say that when I talk about building wealth, I'm not talking about becoming a money hungry, just money greedy, this is evil person that just cares about money. That's not what I'm talking about, because I want you to live a holistic life, because money is just one part of your life. But the second part to that is I'm not telling you to never enjoy life. I'm telling you to make a sacrifice for a period of your life. That way you can enjoy the rest of your life and never have to worry about money again.
It's hard for us to naturally see life as seasons, especially when we're looking forward. When we're looking back, it's very easy to say, that was that season. Like I can sit here now and say, that 20 to 25 was that sacrifice everything in my life to make myself something season. And then 25 to 30 was like building and learning. And then I now, can think of, it's easier actually now to think forward in seasons now that I've been through some seasons. But for someone that hasn't been through seasons in life, it's hard to think about life in those terms. I now think of my life in these 5-year seasons. And that helps me to say even have conversations with my partner where I go, this is the season I'm in. And it will last probably roughly this long. And I'm going to sacrifice these things and prioritize these things in this season. But it's hard for people to understand this idea.
It's difficult. And that sacrifice is difficult, especially during a time where everybody's showing off everything on Instagram. You look at your friends who have a crappy job, but they're driving around in nicer cars, going on better vacations, going to the nicer restaurants, and you're thinking, what did I do wrong? And then especially if you're a guy, you have a girlfriend, you have a wife, she's going to say, how come they keep getting to go to Cancun? They keep going to these nice restaurants. How come you can't take me to these nice places? And now you feel like you're doing something wrong, because where is this discrepancy? The reason why I call my show The Minority Mindset is because I'm a big advocate of not doing what the majority of people do. The first time I made $1 million in a year, I was in my 20s. I was driving a car worth $500. It didn't have a bumper on it. It was not pretty. My wife sat in that car with me, and my employees drove better cars than I did. So, you got to be confident, and you got to work for something bigger. And you want a partner that's going to understand that. That's my belief. Which is not the easy thing.
It's interesting because confidence is such a internal thing. And I just feel like I probably didn't have it then. Because I think I was scared for someone to know that I was broke. I was so scared for someone to know that I was broke that I just didn't entertain romantic relationships.
And that is the reason why so many people will go into debt to buy vacations, to buy things, to buy stuff, to look rich. And ironically, that's the key thing that keeps so many people poor for the rest of their life, is because they're scared to look broke. And now when you try to look rich, that's the thing that's actually keeping you broke.
There's another element to this, which is my life was pretty miserable. So when you have a relatively miserable life, when you don't have many nice things, because you're working in a call center as I was until 11 o'clock at nighttime, doing overtime, every overtime hour I could get. Then because you're also lonely, you're going home alone, walking home because you can't afford the bus. Anything that gives you a little dopamine hit. Gambling. This is why all the gambling shops are in the areas that struggle the worst financially, because a lot of people say because those people are looking for that, that big payday, that dopamine hit from a payday. My TV in my tiny, tiny little bedsit room was like half the size of the wall. I was making reckless spending decisions because I think it gave me some kind of hit that I was missing in my life. It gave me like a dopamine rush and there wasn't many things giving me a dopamine hit at that point in my life.
And see, here's the thing. During that time, you are making emotional decisions.
Yes.
As many people are. And it's very difficult to speak logic to emotion. But this is where now you have to be able to understand the difference. Because if you're listening to this and you're in that situation, you have to understand that if you want to continue being able to live that lifestyle, you're going to have to make some changes today. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in this lifestyle for the rest of your life. And it's only going to get more difficult. And that's the thing, is if you want to become wealthy, the first part is just your own mindset. It's your own discipline. And until you can conquer that, I can tell you, everything about investing. I can tell you different ETFs and index funds to invest in. I can tell you different investment institutions out there. I can tell you which stock brokerages to use. I can tell you just invest 15% of your income into this for the next 10, 20, 30 years and you're going to become wealthy. But until you can get over that mindset, you're never going to become wealthy. Because then what happens in that situation is when you're in that state of, I just want to look rich. I just want to have that dopamine hit. I just want to have some nice things because I deserve it. I'll work hard. You know what happens next? You are the one that gets caught up in all the get rich quick schemes. Because someone's going to say, look, put $1,000 into this. You'll have $10,000 in the next 3 months. Or I'm going to show you can live the laptop lifestyle. You can work 5 hours a week, make $10,000 a month, $10,000 a week. You're never going to have to worry about money again. Just buy this program. And now you're a prime candidate because now you were driven by this emotion of, I want that. I can't imagine if I had an extra $10,000 a month and I don't even have to work for it because you can't see past it. All you're doing is being sold by emotion. And so you're the one that's going to get caught up in the get rich quick schemes. You're the one that's going to make the bank rich because you're going to stay stuck in debt. Corporations are going to love you because they can keep selling you the nicest, the newest stuff because you want to look rich, you want to show it off to your friends, you want to show it off to the girls. And you get stuck in that cycle.